Welcome back to the second part of Encyclostoma duodenum, also betterly known as the hookworm. In the first lecture, we have seen about the structure and two forms, that is the adult and the egg form of hookworm. And today we are going to start with the life cycle of hookworm. So the only host to which this parasite survives is man. There are no two hosts or any secondary or primary host involved in this parasite. It is only just the man, which is the definite host for encyclostoma. They usually grow in the small intestine and they are attached to the mucous membrane with the help of the mouth parts. The eggs that this particular parasite releases are in a stage of ooblastomias, which are passed out in the feces of the infected person. And surprisingly, this four-cell stage of the egg is a non-infective form. This non-infective four-stage egg, when present in soil, this will be secreted in the feces, and then they come in the contact with the soil. Reptidiform larva hatches from each egg, that is in within 24 to 48 hours, and this increases in size many folds. As you can see, 250 micrometer to 17 micrometer. It molts twice on the third and the fifth day and develops into a filariform larva, which is again much bigger than the rhaptidiform larva. This filariform larva is in the infective form. It penetrates unbroken skin of toe, dorsum of foot, and medial aspect of sole. Remains infective up to 6 weeks. This basically they do have a tendency to enter through the unbroken skin of toe, dorsum of foot, and medial aspect of sole. From the time of development of filariform larva, um, this will remain active for around 6 weeks. You can see the reptiliform larva in the second part, which is smaller, and the second the pillariform larva, which is comparatively bigger in size. You can also see a few developments that has occurred, like the esophagus, intestine, and genital primordium and anal pore have been developed in the reptiliform larva. Who are the people at risk in this particular case? They are barefoot walking people in soil. So you can understand, we have seen that in India, there's more prominent in Punjab, Bihar, and Uttar Pradesh. As we know, they have more of agricultural land, and people involved there are more in agriculture. The particular type of crops that they grow, like rice cultivation, requires walking barefoot in mud, and that is the reason they get more infected with this particular parasite. Farm workers, where the larva will penetrate the skin of the hand. It reaches subcutaneous tissue and enters lymphatic or small venules. From skin, they basically will enter the lymphatics and venules. From lymph to venous circulation into the right heart, into the pulmonary capillaries, break through and enter the alveolar space. Now from alveolar space they will migrate to bronchi, trachea, larynx, crawl over the epiglottis to the pharynx and get swallowed. During migration through esophagus, it undergoes the third molting. So if you remember, the first and the second molting basically occurred between the reptiliform and filiform. And the third molting will occur during the migration through the esophagus. So it is taking a quite uh, longer route to enter into the small intestine. But this works out because if people are walking barefooted, this larva will enter into their skin. This is an unbroken skin. and they will reach into the lymphatics, then into the small venules, then they will reach into the uh, right heart, and from right heart they will be pumped into the pulmonary capillaries. Now, from pulmonary capillaries, they will bring through into the alveoli. Now they will go through the retrograde way from alveoli to the bronchi, then to the trachea, then to the larynx, then crossing over to the epiglottis, they will enter into the esophagus, and then is the time they enter into the third mode. From there, they will settle into the small intestine and undergo the fourth mode and develops into an adult form. So it's very interesting to know that how the different molting stages are occurring at the different locations where the atmospheric condition, the environmental condition are changing drastically. The two molting occurred outside the body and two molting occurred inside the body. And all through these phases, this particular parasite was showing different developments structures. After the fourth molting, they attach to the small intestine but their mouth part. After around 6 weeks, they mature sexually and fertilization occurs. And female begins to lay egg in feces and the cycle repeats. The point to be noted here is the eggs laid at this particular point. There are four cells, blastomeres, which are particularly non-infective. The infective form is the filial form of egg. You can see in this diagram. We'll start from the female worm lays egg. You can see at the bottom the a cell containing four different blastomeres. This will develop into a reptiliform larva, then into a filiariform larva. This is the time where first and the second molting will occur. They will enter into the skin, into venous circulation, then into the lungs. From lungs, they will enter into esophagus, then to a small intestine, where after entering into the small intestine, they will observe the fourth molting. You can see the different male and female structures presented in the left. Now about their pathogenesis and clinical manifestation. Their infective form, as we have discussed, is filial form larva. Portal of entry is skin. Worm causes hookworm disease are characterized by anemia, and effects are due to migrating larva or adult worm. Encyclostoma dermatitis or ground itch. It is the symptoms produced by the migrating larva. They cause a certain type of itch and creeping eruption in cutaneous larva migrants. As they enter through the skin, there would be eruptions at the point of entry and the trail or the course that they have decided. And we may surely find lesions in the lungs also, because due to their, as they are entering into the alveoli and from there, so definitely some inflammatory reactions can be seen in those locations. You can clearly see in this diagram, uh, this particular picture is representing how the larva, filial form larva has entered through the skin, and you can see the trail or the way it has traveled. So obviously, from the point of entry, they will cause dermatitis, and you can see the path they are following. It is followed by redness and swelling of that particular area, and papular and vesicular eruptions can be seen. These usually will disappear after around 1 to 2 weeks after they enter. Normally, sometimes the conditions where filial larva is wandering about in the skin only. They have not entered into the lymphatics and into the circulation. Rather, they are only seen wandering in the skin. They produce reddish itchy papules along the path they have traveled. See, and usually this type of redness and trails can be seen only in the animals because they cannot migrate to the lymphatic level there in the animal. So this is something of the veterinary importance. But still, we need to understand that animals can also suffer from such type of diseases. I don't think so. Our pets at home wear any shoes or sandals to protect them from encyclosoma. So, how are humans getting affected? If they walk barefootedly to come in contact with the moist soil and with the animal feces, and keeping occasional eruptions can be seen following them. Now, what type of lesions in the lungs can we find? That is, obviously, they'll be suffering from bronchitis or bronchopneumonia. Eosinophilia may occur, which is increase in the number. It is basically caused by the adult worm or the molting worm, which is its disease is known as cyclostomasis. The type of anemia developed here is microcytic hypochromic anemia. Hookworm ingest blood. The reason why anemia is getting developed, and of the characteristic there is microcytic and hypochromic. As this particular parasite is feeding on blood, there is obviously a deficiency of blood that will occur. And in order to replace that blood at a swift or at a faster rate, what will happen, the size of the RBC will not get matured enough. That's why it's microcytic. Again, there is deficiency of iron as this bookworm is ingesting on various nutrients. So it could be hypochromic type of anemia. Sometimes you can find dyspnea and cough. They are related to lungs. Intestinal manifestation, what will they do in their intestine? They will attach to the mucosa of the small intestine. It sucks around 0.2 ml of blood per day. Usually, what they will do from one side to other side, they will migrate and leave a small bleeding point at the point where they were earlier attached. As this worm buccal cavity secretions basically contains anticoagulant substances, they'll leave that particular point to be bleeding for a certain period of time. And this leads to bleeding, which is although small in quantity as they're feeding on blood also. This blood is also lost from the point of attachment. This leads to, in long term, you can see that it leads to anemia. Now, what will the degree of anemia or how much anemia will develop? This will obviously depend on how many worms are actually present in the small intestine, how you are replacing the iron content of your body, and obviously what is stored in your body. You will have a good storage of iron. So it will take a quite longer period of time for anemia to develop. It may also develop sometimes low-grade fever, which is not too high, and epigastric pain, dyspepsia, vomiting, and diarrhea. My stool can be reddish to black, obviously due to the clotted blood being oozed out from the point of attachment, and signs and symptoms which are obviously related with your anemia may be present. That's it. We'll continue from the